the Seawinds are a blue water boat, and we've never felt that she hasn't taken care of us. You definitely don't need a 50-foot catamaran.
Well, she's 4 years old. Why wouldn't we cross? And we decided that's it. Let's load the boat up and go across to the Maldives, and then onto Socotra, which is part of Yemen, Djibouti, and then we're sitting here now talking to you in Sudan. Surrounded by these amazing ruins, and our Facebook posts show this just another amazing world. And heading up through the Red Sea, we'll just go and spend some time in Cairo and then into the Med in May.
And I can't get the grin off my face every single time we lift those motors up and just start sailing along, because she's just beautiful to sail.
We feel like we're on a luxury apartment.
Join us as we chat with Scott and Sandy from the Red Sea on board their Seawind 1160 Lite catamaran and explore their incredible journey so far from Australia to Europe, all powered by the wind, sun and 2 outboard motors. All right, welcome Sandy, Scott.
Thanks.
Thank you.
From Seawind 1160 Seamoon in Sudan.
Yes. In Africa, in the Red Sea. Fantastic.
That is wild.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a wild ride.
I bet it has. So why don't you give us a quick summary of, I guess, where you've started and now how you've ended up in Sudan, of all places.
Where we've come from. So I'm going to start off that journey. So March 2023, we left Melbourne on our old 32-foot Crowther. She was 40 years old.
Yep.
We headed up to, we were heading up to the Whitsundays, and on the way, I decided that this was, we decided that this was a great lifestyle, but we needed a better boat. So we met a couple in in April on Seawind. We saw them, I think, first we actually met them in Iluka, and Dave and Julie. And they had obviously Seawind, which is a 1260, and I fell in love with their boat. And Julie, being Julie, invited us on for a look. So at that point, Scott knew that there was no other boat that we could get other than a Seawind. So over the next couple of days, they told us about Seamoon for sale up in Sydney. So
I think everybody knew about Ian and Seamoon and how he'd built these amazing Seawind 1160 Lite. So many people that we met had knew him and knew of the boat and said, well, you've got a good boat there. So
yeah. And it is a bit special in that respect, isn't it? It's probably above and beyond a regular 1160 Lite.
Well, I guess the way, he sort of wanted to be an off-grid boat, so it's got 1500 amps of watts of solar and 1000 amp hours of lithium batteries, all electric, no gas, all that sort of stuff. So designed for that off-grid, minimal impact type of living, but also the outboard engines because it's the Lite. So,
yeah.
And I took it on faith that Seawinds were going to sail pretty well.
Actually, we brought it without sailing it. We didn't even sail it until we actually picked her up.
And I can't get the grin off my face every single time we lift those motors up and just start sailing along, because she's just beautiful to sail, that's for sure. So we picked the right boat, that's for sure.
So we picked her up. We continued on our journey and picked her up 4 months later. We left her in Sydney in Brisbane, and where we purchased her through Andrew, and went still up with little old Tenacity up to the Whitsundays, and then came back in September, where we did the handover RQ. Left there, went to Sydney for 5 months and lived in Balmoral for 5 months.
Yep.
On a mooring ball until February 2024. And since then, we decided that we were going to go to Indonesia, and our original plan was to be in Indonesia for the next 5 years, or Southeast Asia. But we've really flown past there. So
it didn't quite resonate with us. It was nice, it was good, but it was kind of all the same. And we're like, okay, well, I wonder how could we dare to dream to go up to Europe? And we didn't really want to do Africa, so it had to be the Red Sea for us. And then we made the decision on only as late as I think the 20th of January was when I sort of had
This year.
the deadline, and we said, yeah, just gone. And I'm like,
Let's
okay,
go.
let's do it. So,
Well, the wind's in the right direction. Time to go.
yeah.
Yeah, so we left Australia like the 26th of June. So, you know, we haven't been gone all that long. 2024.
Yeah, we're just sailing noobs. We know that. Cruising noobs. All these people that we're around have been out here for years and years and years. But we have the prettiest boat in the anchorage. So
We do.
So you've gone to Indonesia, which is a pretty big step for most people in its own right, actually. But you've got your new boat, and it's a late model Seawind 1160 Lite, as you mentioned, but it is heavily spec'd. Well, it's not heavily spec'd. It's modified with extra solar and lithium and induction stove tops and various other nice additions, which made it ideal. So you got to Indo, and then you just kept going.
We put Starlink and a washing machine on. That was our only contribution to the whole boat setup.
Right. And then you've got this dream to cross, well, a flippant dream to cross the Indian Ocean.
Yeah, well, we sort of got up to, so we did Indonesia for about 4 months, went across to Malaysia, Langkawi, Phuket. So we did sort of Christmas, New Year in Phuket. And then, as Scott said, the 20th of January was our drop dead date. Do we turn and go across the ocean, in Indian Ocean, or do we go back? And, you know, one of the factors for us was we feel like we're on a luxury apartment. You know, she's 4 years old. She's a beautiful to sail. And Scott can talk to it more about sailing, because I'm not, you know, I've only been sailing 4 years. But she's just a beautiful boat. And so we're like, well, she's 4 years old. Why wouldn't we cross? And so, yeah, 20th of January, we decided that's it. Let's load the boat up and go. And we were gone within the first week of February, across to the Maldives, and then on to Socotra, which is part of Yemen. It's a little island just off Somalia, for those that don't know. I definitely didn't know. Djibouti, and then we're sitting here now talking to you in Sudan. You know, surrounded by these amazing ruins, and you know, our Facebook posts show this just another amazing world. And heading up through the Red Sea, you know, we're going to go and spend some time in Cairo, and then into the Med in May.
That's
unbelievable. And I should mention, if anyone wants to follow your Facebook blog, Sailing Sea Moon Oz is the name of that blog.
Yeah,
so
almost every day she's got a post up there of what we've done, just a little snippet of.
Yeah, and just a minute.
It's fantastic. It's great little snippets of your journey, and even some of the routing that you're taking, which has been awesome. So a couple of questions on that. First of all, that's pretty brave, some of the destinations you've recently visited. What gave you the confidence to roll on through there?
The amazing people that we met on, because we did a rally in Indonesia. Not sure we'd do that again, but we met a lot of wonderful people on our journey up from Australia up through to Thailand, really. And some of them were of the same mind. It's like, you know, if not now, when? A lot of boats had not gone through the Red Sea last season, because they were too worried about the things that were here, that were going on. This year we felt there was a good window. Peace was breaking out. There wasn't too much going on with the Houthis, and the pirates are very quiet, the sailing vessels. I think the reality is the media like to overblow the threat and the risk in this area. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but we certainly didn't see any of it. So it was just, you know, we're trying to enjoy the beautiful sailing, because it's a gorgeous area, unbelievable area. If it calmed down, the reefs in here would rival Queensland. It's just amazing for a cruising area.
In saying that, going past Yemen, some of the other boats did actually hear the jets the other night and the first bombings of Yemen. So that was when we were coming through the pass. So they did, you know, other boats did hear that. I didn't pick that up. But that was something that was really happening, just off our port side. It was happening.
Yemen and Eritrea
really
aren't places that you want to be having to stop at all. So you just sort of hang with the whole thing with, shipping has stopped in the Red Sea is just not true. There's like tons and tons of cargo boats and oil tankers going backwards and forwards. So there's always people around, and we didn't see any warships. Not supposed to see them right until the last minute. But so I don't think it didn't feel for us like it was a huge risk like it has felt for other people.
And I think, from a sailing perspective, there's always a risk. We always have a risk lens. So, if we go out every single day, there's a risk, right? So I guess we weighed up the risk. We made that decision. And I did say to Scott, if it had been a couple of weeks later and things were still happening down that end, would we decide, hey, let's just hang out in the Maldives and then go back? Maybe. But, you've got to take some risks in life. And I guess this is an educated risk that we took.
And from an ocean crossing perspective, timing is everything, right? So we've just got the peak window for crossing. So just beautiful winds behind us on our beam or behind us. Seas weren't that rough. It's just, this is the time of the year that you want to be crossing the Indian Ocean. It was fantastic, really. So we knew that this was the 2-month sort of window to do that crossing, and it was joyous. Sunshine, amazing. So
I'm just sharing my screen here real quick to have a look at. I'm not sure if you can see this on your screen, but a windy diagram there of today's conditions as it stands from a macro level, and it does look like you've got trades blowing you most of the way. Is that fair enough?
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So where we are now, we were lucky to get up to Suakin with the southerly winds still blowing in that area. A lot of people that are about 4 weeks in front of us had northerlies up to sort of those islands which were a little bit south. So they've been smashing into it for a lot longer than we did. So, and it looks like some fairly innocuous weather coming up. We've got some pretty strong winds now from the north, but we won't get southerlies from here. We will be beating into it, but this is the challenging part of the Red Sea, that last little pinch at the top of the mountain to climb that everyone worries about. But we think we've got a good boat to handle the upwind conditions. She'll do, we know from our time in Sydney with the jib on, the soft tacker, we can do 40 degrees off true wind angle relatively easily. So without, flogging anything. And we think that's going to be the good tactic for us to get up to this next part of the Red Sea. So I'm looking forward to it in some ways.
Yeah. Looks like some good pressure up there to stretch its sailing legs a little bit.
Exactly right. Exactly.
And we do like sailing, Brent. Like that's the main reason why we got Sea Moon, was we love the sailing. We love turning off the motors.
It's not a challenge getting fuel. It's just unique to them because they have, it's more of a challenge getting diesel, I would say, because the big boats, big ships have probably a different kind of diesel. All of their local fishing boats all running outboards, and they're all running Yamahas, which is what we're running, the Yamaha 25s. So in terms of spare parts and things like that, you can go in. We found that it's in Indonesia. You could go to a little hardware shop in the middle of nowhere where there's no way you're getting sort of diesel parts, and there'd be Yamaha spares that would have fitted our motor. We're like, oh wow, we didn't need to stress about spares so much because it's all there. But all their fishing boats are outboard, so there's plenty of fuel, and the fuel quality. I think the ethanol levels have gone up and down, but our motors haven't really noticed them at all.
I just want to point out, so you guys have done some pretty big crossings now with twin 25 horsepower Yamaha outboards, just to make that clear for those that are tuning in.
Yeah, that's right. I wouldn't. It's funny. I was just doing some stats since we left Phuket. It's about 4,100 miles since Phuket to here. A total travel time of 727 hours, and 210 hours of motoring. So around about 30% of the time on that leg of 4,000 miles has been with one engine on. We don't run with two, one engine on so around about that 30% of the time. So it's mainly the main propulsion on Seamoon is their sails, and that's what we love. So, and even motor sailing where we have to. Been very few times where we've had to just give up. There's no wind whatsoever. And again, that's the time of the year that we pick to make it. Well, there'll be some motoring in the next leg. I know that, but we have plenty of fuel on board. We've never gone close to using all of our fuel supply.
And just on that point, were you carrying additional jerry cans, I take it, as backup? Yeah.
Yeah, we've got 10 on the deck and 5 where the fuel tank in that hatch there. So
as well as the tank.
Yeah, as well as the 270 litre tank that comes with the Seawind Lite. So plenty of fuel, and to be honest, we could have done with half of that. It's just my anxiousness. I don't want to run out of fuel if we have to motor for 4 days straight. Then without any wind assistance, then we could do that. And I thought that was for the Indian Ocean crossing, but I don't. It hasn't really eventuated. And now where we are, we can stop in Egypt a couple of places to get fuel. So even then, I'm not too phased from here.
And when you're sailing, I mean, what sort of conditions are you in when the sails are up?
In terms of just pure sailing, usually 10 knots plus. Because it's downwind sailing and our apparent wind, if our apparent wind is more than 10, then we're able to turn the engines off and we're doing 5 knots. Usually we've got a lot more wind than that, sort of 15 to 20s behind us, and we'll be doing 6-7 knots. We're usually averaging around about 5.5-6 knots for the whole crossing, in its various stages. So it's been fast. Another boat that was sailing near us saw us go past with just the main up because the wind was dead behind us. We were more than that. The angle wasn't enough to put a headsail up, and it was blowing 20-25, and we were just flying.
We flew past them, and then they flew past us when we had to turn the motors on because the motors aren't as powerful as a diesel.
Yeah, we're not fast on the engine. So that's deliberately from fuel consumption as well. If we put both on and we're using 10 litres an hour, then we can go as quick as we like. But just from a fuel conservation perspective, we usually average around about 3 litres, maybe 3.5 litres an hour on the motor.
Combined or per motor?
Oh, per motor, but we're only using one at a time. So per motor. Yeah.
And remind me, what's the sail wardrobe that you're running?
Well, for this leg, for most of the downwind crossings up into Phuket, we've used up into Djibouti. We've used a Genoa and the main, and that's been great. We do have a Screecher which we don't use because we prefer a spinnaker, and we have a spinnaker. So we use the spinnaker when the conditions are right for that, and the Genoa. We've changed the Genoa out for the self-tacking jib in Djibouti, probably a little bit early. Probably should have done that here in Socotra. So just because at night time we don't want to run the spinnaker, and the jib is not a great pure downwind sail. But we've had the main up the whole time. So with one passage exception from Socotra to Djibouti, for some reason I thought it was going to be about 25-30 knots, and we would just run on the Genoa. But that was probably a mistake, and I knew that was a mistake when I did it. When I decided that, I'm like, you should always have the main up. It's such a beautiful main that that there's no reason not to have it up at all times, no matter how far the wind is behind you, or how windy it is.
And Seamoon's such an easy boat to sail. So once the sails are set and, we're on course, we do 6-hour shifts. So, we sort of start, midnight onwards. So, I feel really confident that I can change those sails as well by myself without having to wake up Scott and vice versa. So, you know, she's just such an amazing boat to be on.
Well, reefing usually requires two of us, but for the main, so we go conservative on that at night to try and not wake up the other person if we have to. But you know.
And so, just to be clear, it's just the two of you on board during passage?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Perfect.
just doing that 6-hour shifts, which seems relatively unique because from all the people around us, they go, oh, how could you do that long? But, you know, the auto helm on this boat is amazing and hasn't let us down.
And how have you found the boat beyond handling? How have you found it out at sea in these larger passages?
It's like living on an apartment. I love her. And I think we've done a few things for the long passages, Brent, that we have just made our lives a little bit easier. So we've always maintained that we go down to our cabin to sleep, just so the other person's got, you know, all the room up here, and, you know, you don't disturb that other person. You go down just like you normally would, go down to bed, and if we need you, we'll come and get you. But the longer passage from Phuket was the first time that we actually converted the saloon table to a bed. So we've sort of got a day bed set up. And, you know, we can lounge on that during the day. And at night, actually, you know, we lounge on that and look out these beautiful big windows. And, you know, you don't even have to be outside if it's, you know, a little bit cold or what have you. You can be inside, and we love having the door up as well. So, you know, the conditions at the moment, we can have the door up. There's no sort of waves coming in. So perfect just to, you know, have this.
It's been, I mean,
area.
With the sea state, she's been, I would have said it was pretty rough from Phuket, especially after Sri Lanka into the Maldives. It was pretty rough conditions. And sometimes she hobby horses a little bit. I think any boat or cat would in the conditions. They're like the conditions from Socotra to Djibouti and up into the Red Sea, very reminiscent of the Australian East Coast, coming up that inside the reef there. So you've got short, they're not big waves. They build up to 2.5 meters or so, and I'm told they get bigger, but they're quite short between them. So you know she can hobby horse a little bit, and you're sort of sitting at the back going, oh, I don't know how Sandy's sleeping in this when it's bouncing up and down. That said, you know, we don't put away the coffee machine. Everything's sitting on the bench. It's not, in perspective, you know, like, oh, wow, we're bouncing around, but nothing falls off. It's not like, you know, monohull sailing where you've got gimbals on stoves and things. The kettle just stays on the stove the whole time. And so we feel it's pretty luxe. It's luxe sailing, that's for sure.
It is luxe sailing. I mean, the only thing we've done from a provisions perspective that might interest people is that we have the Encounter freezer. So we've converted that into a fridge. So we've just dialed it up a bit. And we've got a separate freezer for this leg of the passage. So we've got some additional room, because obviously the bar fridge is probably a little bit small from a longer passage perspective, especially when we've got fruit and vegetables for 3 or 4 weeks, because we don't know what we're going to get the next place either. So, you know, are we just going to get a local market, or are we going to get a shopping centre, or, you know, it's very varied, and then the produce is hit and miss. So that's probably one thing that we've done as well from a long passage perspective, that's worked really well for us.
And how long has the longest passage been so far?
That would have been, the longest passage was Phuket to the Maldives. It was 1,600 miles, and it took us 10.5 days.
Gotcha. Yeah,
so
excellent.
10.5 days was the longest passage. You know, otherwise, the next one was 9 days, and then it's been short hops of 5, you know, nearly 6 days and 5.5 days. So, and we think this next leg, depending upon the weather and depending on how we're handling it, we could go all the way to Suez, to the start of the canal, or we might have to stop, and it might be a week or maybe 10 days. We're not sure.
Right. And then go and visit the pyramids.
Yeah.
Yeah, halfway through the Suez Canal is a marina. Apparently, that's the finish line. Everyone feels pretty stoked at saying, "Yeah, we made it." And then and from that marina, it's only 100k or so away from Cairo, so
Wow.
you can visit the interior of Egypt a bit. So
Fantastic.
and it's only another 40 miles to the Med. So
Right. And then what are your plans from there? See where the wind blows.
Yeah, they vary. But we're struggling with the Schengen. If there's any Schengen experts that want to reach out to us, please help with some sort of plan, because non-Europeans only get 3 months in Schengen countries, which is pretty much all of Europe except for Turkey. There's and the African continent. So you're only 3 months in 6. So we think we're going to spend some time in Cyprus and Turkey, and then
Greece.
Then spend our 3 months in the Greek islands, and then once that's done, we'll probably come back to Turkey or Cyprus outside of the Schengen areas for wintering. So we'll have the boat parked up in October, and then we'll probably that'll be the first time we're off it. We don't like leaving it; we want to live on it. So, but we will come back to Australia and do a little bit of travelling, and we just can't travel within Europe because again, that's Schengen. We've got to guard our Schengen our days very jealously. So,
yeah.
So it's going to be kind of a mix. We'll probably be a few years in the Med, and then we'll head over to the Bahamas, Caribbean, and then at some point there'll be a circumnavigation. We'll bring her back to Australia at some point, but we can't see that happening within the next 5 years. So we'll see.
Fantastic. Well, hopefully you'll visit our Seawind friends in Turkey while you're there.
Yeah, we'd love to do that. We're having a look where they were, and we're definitely keen to do that.
We're getting more and more boats up there now. We might have to tune in to you again when you visit.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you've obviously you've really covered some miles now, and I full credit to you. I think it's just so fascinating to watch your trip extend every day. A lot of people these days assume you need a 50-foot catamaran to cross oceans. Clearly, that's not the case here.
If you've got 2 or 3 kids on board, I think you do. I think you need to escape from that, because I see families sailing and I'm like, they're probably glad they got a bigger catamaran.
Yeah.
For 2 of us, I know the Seawinds are a blue water boat, and we've never felt that she hasn't taken care of us in when conditions get rough. We know we can sail around the world with her, and push her as far as we want to push her, but she looks after us very, very well. So no, you definitely don't need it. And for us, just the 2 of us on board, and we have visitors, like my kids and our kids and my brother come and stay with us, not all at once. So, but it feels like we're living in a luxury apartment still. There's plenty of room in here for us, and she's you definitely don't need a 50-foot catamaran, no.
Well, we'll continue watching with great interest, and please keep us updated. And I hope one day you do complete the lap, and you can come pick up your new Seawind 1160 XL by that time, the new model that's just coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw it
coming out.
Yeah, we do hope to catch up with you again as you continue.
Love to, Brent. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.